Hey guys, Brennan here with a new video. I am throwing a ball. Yeah, woohoo, best video ever, right guys? Well, I'm sorry, that's not the video. You can tell by the title that's not the video. This is not the video. The video is very good to me. Very heartfelt, like, story, man. Yeah, let's get into it. Okay, I'm reading a story written by me. It is called Apathy Man. Apathy Man is the best story ever. Okay, we are reading Chapter 1 of Apathy Man. Chapter 1, Apathy Man Origins. I am Brennan Clark, a relatively ordinary person. I live out in the middle of nowhere, and nothing super important ever happens in my life. I'd say one of the most interesting things in my life is my role in the drama club at my school. When school isn't in session or drama isn't currently doing a production, I make YouTube videos. I commonly did this for a little over 3 years until the beginning of 10th grade. The new school year had started, and I was going to bide my time until the drama program started up again. I was so excited to hear about what play we were going to do and actually participate in another play. Then it happened. I was just hanging out with my friends and going through a normal school day when suddenly it was said that a random attack had happened to the nation, and it was apparently orchestrated by a group by the name of the Careful Eye. A suspect had been apprehended under charges for terrorism. It was revealed that during the interrogation, the only thing he had said was,
"We are the ones who watch out for society, the careful eye. We will change the future of this world."
no one will be able... Wait, that's still the dialogue. Let's go back.
"We will change the future of this world. No one will be able to turn a blind eye any longer."
I had heard all about this through rumor and speculation. However, didn't read that right. I had heard all about this through rumor and speculation, however. I was known to take an apathetic approach to social issues. I kept hearing about the Careful Eye, getting somewhat irritated about it due to the amount of presence they had in daily conversation. Most of my friends wouldn't shut up about them. There were only a few people I could actually bear to talk to because of this. Due to my growing anger about the issue, I purposely distanced myself from my friends. I couldn't even bear to look online anymore either. The only reason I was even getting angry was due to my lack of interest in the topic. I later realized that I was making so many mistakes in my everyday life. I couldn't focus on anything, and I stopped caring about everything. This eventually led to my cessation of attending school. My parents wouldn't get off my back about it, and every time they yelled at me, I would shut down and cry. I couldn't take the stress of caring any longer. I felt useless, and I think my life would have taken a turn for the worse if I hadn't decided to finally go back to school that day. All of my friends were so excited to see me, and I was happy to see them. I had really just gone through the motions that day, even with my slightly improved mood. I had decided to walk home that day since I didn't live far. On my way home, I had run into a slight issue. My legs weren't quite used to walking due to my 2-month period of laying on the floor all day. I collapsed and couldn't get back up. It was at this time I had my first experience with death. I was freezing cold, even with my coat on, and thought I was going to die of hypothermia. It was then that someone had came along and picked me up, pulling me into their car. It was my friend from school, Clyde. He smiled at me and started with, "You're really stupid walking home like that. I know you've done it before, but it's not exactly safe or smart. You could have died. Probably would have too if I hadn't come along." I stared him dead in the face, almost emotionless. I stared him dead in the face and said, almost emotionlessly, "I don't care. I don't care about anything anymore." He had a worried expression, and he put his hand on my shoulder. looking me in the eyes as he said, "Well, I do. I care about you, man. You're my best friend, so don't give me that. I'm gonna take you home, okay?" After that, we drove the rest of the 2 minutes from the school to my house in complete silence. Once home, I went inside, immediately going upstairs. I collapsed on my floor, crying silently as I heard a voice say something. So I looked around and no one was to be seen. I thought I was going insane. Maybe I was. I got up the floor and sat at my desk, opening up my laptop for the first time in weeks and browsing. Opening up my laptop for the first time in weeks and browsing social media. There was no word of the careful eye as there had been before I had gone into my state of complete apathy. Instead, there was the normal memes and shit you'd see on social media. I then closed my laptop and leaned forward, resting my head on my desk, falling asleep. I woke up the next day and checked social media, seeing that there was tons of talk about an attack by the careful eye last night. They had apparently shut off the power in 3 different cities for a span of about 20 minutes. I was outraged to see this group that I had hated so much for being in the limelight be there again. I got up and ran outside, screaming at the top of my lungs, "Fuck you, careful eye!" I then breathed heavily, leaning on the railing of my porch a bit before falling over. I was exhausted from such a simple thing as shouting. Guess it's what happened when you don't move or speak in 2 months. I was disgusted with myself and also with the world. I had then decided to get my life together. I had started to exercise it until I was at a level where I was comfortable with my ability of movement, my breath stability, and my overall appearance. I wasn't perfect, but whoever is. After and during my training, I was attending school regularly. I got my life back on track. I had participated in another drama production and the school year was almost over. Another attack by the careful eye had happened, and I couldn't ignore it. I started an anonymous social media account by the name of Apathy Man. I decided to name it this due to the state of despair and apathy I was in just a few months ago, and also as a sort of opposition to the Careful Eyes group name. I basically used this account to provide support to people in need of help due to the Careful Eyes attacks, and also to raise awareness to the horrible actions of the group. It was a few weeks after this where I had been called down to the principal's office in the middle of 6th period. My teacher didn't give a reason as to why, but I had to go anyway. Upon setting foot into the principal's office, I was greeted by a tall man that was most certainly not my principal. I turned quickly and tried to run, but the door had already shut and locked behind me. I then turned back toward the man and yelled, "What the hell is going on? Let me go!" The man looked at me and laughed. To think that the Apathy Man, who so horribly reprimanded our actions, was just a kid. Well, I came here to strike a deal. Delete the account, or be prepared to face the consequences and be mocked as an enemy of the Careful Eye. I looked up at him, unable to speak, only able to think. How? How did he find me? How did any of this happen? I stared in disbelief for a few more seconds before breaking the silence with, I can't do that. I'm saying the truth, and my opinion has to be heard. Unable to take the deal, are we? I thought you'd have been smarter with that. Oh well, take him away now, thank you, he said, looking directly at me, smiling deviously as 2 men in black suits walked in and grabbed me by the arms. I struggled, trying to get away, but then a 4th man, wearing a lab coat, entered the room. The man was carrying a syringe and whispered, "It'll all be over soon. Don't worry," into my ear before injecting me with something, causing me to lose consciousness. When I awoke, I was in an unfamiliar location. The room had purple walls and a black ceiling with 2 long rectangular lights on it. The floor was carpeted and multicolored, different lengths of carpet laid down carefully, not unlike a patchwork quilt. Not unlike a patchwork quilt. There was a few pieces of furniture in the room, such as the bed I was just asleep in, a desk and chair, and a sofa and table. I was confused as to why a captor would ever give me such a normal room and not throw me in a torture chamber. I realized quickly that it was to bring out the psychological effect known as Stockholm Syndrome. This is when the self-preservation part of your mind starts to overwrite your hatred toward a captor as a means of keeping yourself alive. I got up out of the bed, running quickly to the door, trying to open it. I turned the handle and pulled forcefully, knocking myself over upon the door's opening. Once again, I was confused. I had expected the room to be locked and not be able to go anywhere, but it opened. I was thinking everything over in my head, and that's when the man in the lab coat from earlier turned the corner. He smiled at me and said, "Someone's eager to start." He then looked down the hallway and shouted, Detain patient number 7G49 and take him to testing room 16. He walked down the hallway laughing to himself and grinning as two men in black suits grabbed me by the arms, dragging me down the hallway and throwing me into a room. Upon getting thrown on the floor, the door was locked behind me, and one of the men grabbed me again, restraining me to a table, both of the men leaving the room. Some time passed, and I was stuck staring at the ceiling until I heard the door open. I craned my neck upward to see who had just entered. It was the man in the lab coat from earlier again. He had a slight smirk on his face and broke the silence with, "So, how are you feeling?" I got angry at his question, almost outraged, screaming, "You have the nerve, the audacity, to ask me how I'm doing after kidnapping me and strapping me to a table? Screw you!" The man looked down, speaking in a hushed voice. Not well, it seems. Whatever. It's going to be worse in about a minute." He walked across the room, out of sight, and returned with a vial and syringe in his hand. He smirked at me, laughing. "You know, this stuff's pretty great. It's a toxin that suppresses the will of the brain, causing anyone injected to slowly wait as the body dies, helpless to do anything about it. I made it myself." After revealing this to me, he filled the syringe with the liquid in the vial and injected me, my effort to struggle not helping me at all. I felt my control over my body be taken aback slightly immediately upon injection. I was unsure as to what was going to happen, so I decided to try and say something. I was able to get out my message. I don't care what you do to me." This phrase caused the man in the lab coat to laugh hysterically as he left the room. But it also allowed something else to happen. It was a verbal agreement of submission to the serum in my bloodstream. All of a sudden, my body moved on its own as a voice in my head, not mine, but similar, said, "Thanks for the ride, kid." No, I'm joking. That's not what he said. It is, but not kid. It's, "Thanks for the rad, me." I was really confused and scared, but my body still moved on its own, tearing the restraints off and getting off the table. I felt control being regained to my body, and I had started running as soon as it did. Although I was now in control, I still felt something pulling and pushing me as I made my movements. I had no clue what it was and no time to question it. I continued to run until I saw a window leading to the outside. I looked over my shoulder and saw guard-looking people giving chase. All of a sudden, I started running at full speed and was forced out the window, unable to stop myself. I landed on the ground outside, perfectly fine, which was extremely surprising considering I was 7 stories up. My body kept moving on its own until I was home. I collapsed on my porch, completely winded and unable to move. The voice that had spoke to me earlier apologized, saying, Sorry about taking your body without permission when we were at the window. Figured it was the only way out. I was so confused and questioned the voice. How did I live? And who are you? The voice laughed and responded, Who am I? I'm you. You lived because I offered you protection. And that's the end of chapter 1. Okay, so yeah, I wrote that, throughout the past week. It was, yeah, it's good so far. I just barely started chapter 2, and I will read chapter 2 when that's done. So I hope you guys enjoyed Apathy Man chapter 1, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. Bye.